Good morning. Welcome to this Sunday workshop at Vajrayana Institute, and I'm Wai-Chong. So today we're going to look at the topic of equanimity, finding equanimity in the face of change. And so in the morning and afternoon session, we're going to explore a little bit different aspects of equanimity. And I thought to start off by looking at how we go from a state where we don't have equanimity to a state where we are able to abide in an equanimous state of mind. So equanimity, especially in the Tibetan Buddhist context, we define it as a state of mind or heart, which is free from the reactivity of attachment and aversion. So attachment is like trying to hold on to something that we like or we want and try to pull it towards ourselves. And aversion is pushing something away, pushing whatever it is that we don't like or we don't want. So we can think of attachment and aversion as two different ways in which we react to change, or we can say our way of resisting change. So change is a fact of life, and whether we like it or not, we're subjected to change. We are constantly in a state of change. And among all those different changes, for sure there are bound to be some that we like. We like that change, or we like whatever it is that comes into our life or comes into our experience. And so we like to hold on to those pleasant objects or experiences, and that is towards them we develop attachment. And likewise, there are other aspects of our experiences that we don't like or we don't want, and we reject them. We want to get rid of them, want to push them out of our awareness, out of our experience. Towards them, that's where we react with aversion or anger or hatred and so on and so forth. Yeah. And these two ways in which we react to change, in which we resist change, in the Buddhist analysis, rooted in our ignorance, which is a kind of a distorted understanding or distorted view of reality. So therefore, a so-called attachment and aversion inevitably involve certain distortion, and that's one thing we can check out for ourselves whether it's true or not. It's precisely because we are not in touch with the actual reality that we have somehow project something. We project some exaggerated idea or image onto the different objects, different experiences. And then towards some, we are trying to hold on to them, resisting change. Towards others, we are rejecting them. We are trying to get rid of them. Again, we are resisting change. Yeah. So these two states of mind, of attachment and aversion, in the Buddhist analysis, are rooted in ignorance. Yeah. And when we experience them, then you can say that we are not equanimous, because they are. If you pay close attention, they agitate the mind, or including the body, agitate our system. They are not peaceful states of mind. And equanimity is defined as to be free from attachment and aversion, to be able to relate to a situation or a person, an object, an event, a happening, free from this two extreme of attachment and aversion. And so hopefully most people would think that equanimity is a far more peaceful way of relating to all these different happenings or changes in our life than to be caught up in attachment and aversion. I like to start with looking at what can we do when we are already reacting. Something has triggered. Because the thing about equanimity is if no major changes in our life, nothing to stir things up, we might feel that we are quite enlightened, because we are quite calm, quite peaceful. We are in control of ourselves, of our life. We know how to get things done. We know what we like, what we don't like, and we are able to manage things. So most of the time we feel quite all right. And I think that's wonderful for a lot of us. Not everyone, but for a lot of us, that is the normal state of being. Otherwise, it would be terrible. However, just because on the surface we seems to be very much in control doesn't mean that we are free from the reactivities of attachment and aversion. It does not mean that we are actually abiding in equanimity. What it means is there is nothing unexpected. Nothing is functioning as a trigger at this moment. But if we were to encounter a change in our experiences or what is going on in our life, that is actually capable of triggering some of these very habituated reactions, then we realize we are not actually equanimous. Because as the reactions erupts, usually they can be quite violent and quite energetic. Then we suddenly realize that we are not in control. We are swept along by the wave of. It can be very physical. There's a physical reaction. There's a emotional feeling aspect of it, and of course, there's a cognitive aspect of it, and that influences our thoughts, our intention, what we choose to do or not do, influence our behavior, influence our speech, and we find that it's like a cascading kind of a series of effects, triggered by a change, change externally or internally. It doesn't have to be a major change, especially if we are in a very stressed out state and we are sort of low in terms of immunity, not only just physically but also emotionally and mentally. Then even a tiny little change can serve as the trigger to set off this whole cascading series of physical, emotional, and mental kind of reactions. Yeah, and that is quite often the place we start. Because at that moment we realize that we are not equanimous. At that moment we realize how powerful our reactions, or sometimes in my case you can call it overreactions. This tends to be like a volcanic eruption. And in the midst of it, of course, equanimity is the last thing. And I might not even remember the word equanimity, but that is a good place to start, because then we can look at how we can help ourselves, help our mind and body, our system, to relate differently to that change. How can we de-escalate that reactivity, and how can we shift from a state of lack of equanimity, most likely in the grip of one of the variations related to attachment or aversion. It could be anger, could be hatred, could be resentment, and could also be anything related to attachment. It could be attachment, could be craving, clinging, could be jealousy, could be sometimes even sadness. Sadness can be strongly as grieving, can also be associated with some deep-seated sense of holding onto, or taking time to come to terms with losses and change. Yeah. So the first meditation we're going to explore is how can we move from a state of reactivity, move out of a state of reactivity. All right, so well, I'm glad at least some people find this video, because we make some changes, last minute change to the YouTube link. Last week I was announcing that we wanted to shift to a single URL for all my teachings or my classes on YouTube. And then we found that it doesn't work the way we imagine it to work. So we have to switch back to scheduling. So we are scheduling all the other classes as well. Yeah. So the first meditation we're going to do together is what I used to call touch and release. But the word touch means to come back to be in touch with what is happening here and there. Primarily, I use it to refer to bodily sensation, to be in touch with the physical sensations of the body. But that is not the only thing we can be in touch with. The main idea of this first aspect of it, to be in touch, means to draw our attention back into here and now, draw it back to the present moment, to be in touch with the reality that is actually happening here and now. And the best way to do it is actually draw our attention, our energy, our attention back to our physical senses. So of course, the body sense is one of the senses. It can also be through hearing, through listening with your eyes open, through seeing, smelling, tasting, sensing through the body. So it's actually more about returning our attention to sensing what is happening here and now. A lot of our reactivity, of course, we are maybe reacting in the midst of a conversation or midst of certain things happening that require us to act immediately. But most of the time, we are actually reacting to something that has happened previously, reacting to the past. We find our attention is drawn back to the past, to thoughts, memories, images about the past, or attention is drawn to the future, to the uncertainty of the future. We find ourselves projecting scenarios through our power of imaginations. And either way, past or future, it sort of hijacked our attention and kept our attention preoccupied with this series of thoughts, images, imaginary scenarios, or past events. And we find ourselves reacting strongly to all these different thoughts and images. And it's not just once. We sort of get caught up in a kind of loop, sort of go round and round and round. Sometimes people call it ruminating thoughts. It's just like the way the cow would ruminate, and chew on whatever food that it has ingested early on, and just keep doing it over and over again. So we are also ruminating over events that has happened in the past, or events that we project and may happen in the future. And by repeatedly entering into those thoughts and feeding those feelings and those reactions, which also have a very physical component to it, we are escalating our reactions. And it's a very disturbed state of mind. It's not very peaceful. It's a very agitated state of mind. And the worst thing of all is quite often, of course, the aim, of course, is we're trying to problem solve. We're trying to secure what we want or what we like, and we're trying to get rid of what we don't want and what we don't like. Unfortunately, it's not the most effective way of doing things, because as I say, attachment and aversion tends to distort our perception, distort our thinking. So we sort of start off on the wrong foot, so to speak. And all the consideration that come out of it is all influenced by that distortion. And it has a tendency, instead of helping us to solve the problem, it's more likely than not to increase our suffering. Because we are not actually facing the change as it is. We are more or less spinning off from whatever it is, the change in circumstances or other people's behavior and so on and so forth. We're just sort of been drawn into different imaginary scenarios. I often find it ridiculous that I spend so much time considering the future, really get involved and get reacting to all these future scenarios. Most of the time, none of them actually happened. When the event actually arrives, how things pan out tends to be completely different from how I have previously imagined it. If I have invest all those time and energy into all these imaginary scenarios, most of which are not true, sometimes none of it is true. So that is why this kind of reactivities, they don't actually help us deal with the problem, don't actually help us deal with reality. They are perpetuating a distortion of reality, and therefore increase our suffering. So in this practice of touch and release, the first step is to invite our attention to come back to the present moment, to sense what is actually happening here and now. In the case of meditation, then the distinction is very great. One moment I'm caught up with thinking about some past events and getting all worked up about it. The next moment, coming back to this moment, I realize, hey, none of that is true. The person that I was maybe filming at isn't here. That event has already passed. And what is happening here is just myself sitting in this room. I can hear the sound in the surrounding. I can feel the temperature in the air. Wherever you are, there's a scent. You can smell the scent. You can see the different shapes and colors and objects around you. You can feel your body, in this current state. And that's all that is happening here and now. The scenario that I'm dwelling on and that has captured my attention, none of it is real in this moment. So that contrast is greatest in the meditative context, and it helps us to reorientate ourselves to reality. You will find that we may have to do it again and again, because in the actual situation, once such a loop of reactivity is activated, there's a tremendous hold on our attention. Our attention gets sucked back into it again and again. So we have to do that repeatedly, inviting our attention to come back to sensing, come back to be in touch with what is happening here and now. So that is actually in itself a good practice. I find myself when I'm reacting. Recently, something triggered my anger, and I was reacting to it. It's very strong anger, a lot of physical reactions to it, and thoughts and feelings. And all I can do is, in the midst of it, to periodically just come back and tell myself, wherever it is I'm reacting, it isn't real. It hasn't happened. That one is the future. What is happening here is I'm actually creating a lot of suffering for myself. My body is so tight and tense, as part of that reactions. Yeah. The second part of it, which I sometimes call release, touch and release, is to facilitate a process of stepping out of that loop of reactivity. Is to remind myself, not that I can necessarily do it immediately, but to remind myself, look, this is not the permanent state of affair, that it is possible to step out of it. In fact, it's better, things will be better when I step out of my loop of reactivity, because I will be in a better state to reassess the situation. I'm actually better able to communicate, and I might, more likely than not, get better results when I'm acting from or behaving from a more equanimous place, as opposed to be caught up in the midst of this reactivity and then to speak or to act or to make choices, because in that case, all those actions and choices are inevitably distorted by my reactions. So I want to just to remind myself, remind my own system, my body and mind, that, hey, I can release this. I can release this reactivity and come back to a better place in order to make an important decision, in order to act from that equanimous place. Right? So touch and release. I tend to synchronize it with the breath, because I find the breath imparts a natural rhythm, which is quite helpful. So there's a few precautions when we do this practice. Of course, breath is not everyone's favorite. If you don't like the breath, if you're having hay fever and a lot of asthmatic reactions, or if the breath has a very negative association, then by all means ignore it. Just create your own rhythm. It's just an alternating rhythm of a bit of time spent on to be in touch, to come back in this moment, sensing what is happening here and now through our senses, and then to remind our system with the mantra, release. Right? To be in touch and then release. To come back to sensing and then release. Right? Also, when I say in touch or sense, I don't mean that we need to put tremendous amount of effort digging into trying to notice the subtlest, deeper sensation in the body or whatever. It's not necessary. It's just to be just like a light touch. It's almost like just sensing what is on the surface of the skin or whatever that is here. And it doesn't have to be limited to, although I'm using the body, it doesn't have to limit to body. It could be the sound in your surrounding, to the smell, the scent, eyes open to the scenery in front of you. Presumably you are not chewing on something, so there's no taste. But even for the body, it's just the most obvious sensation. It's good enough because we are not on an exploration. We're not digging into anything. We are simply coming back to be in touch with the actual reality of this moment. What is happening here? What is what is it that I can sense through my senses in this moment? Is to reorientate my attention, my awareness to the present moment, to reality. And in so doing, have a differentiation between what is real, what is happening here and now, and what is imaginary and what is brought up by my thoughts, by my imaginations, and so forth. Okay, so I'll guide you through this practice. We are primarily using the body, but as I said, don't feel obliged to stick to the body. Whatever is happening in this moment, wonderful things to be aware of. And we just go from crown all the way down to feet. And at each part of the body, we practice touch or sense and release. And we see in this moment what sort of effect such a practice has on our experience. And of course, most likely we are not reacting to something at this moment. So we are not in a tug of war. It is quite difficult to do this when our reactions are triggered. But it's very helpful in a more calmer space to practice this. So much so that when we are familiar with it, we will be able to do it in the midst of finding ourselves reacting to something. And that might have some benefit. And maybe it won't stop the reaction, but it definitely prevent it from escalating to some outrageous extent. Let's do it, meditation, and see what's the effect. So I invite you to find a suitable meditation posture, sitting on a chair, sitting on the floor, lying down, lying on your back, whichever posture feels most suitable for your body in this session. And take a few moments to adjust your body. Make sure that the posture you adopt feels very stable, that your body is well supported and safe in the posture. So I'm just going to ring the bell to signal the start of this first meditation. So we take a few moments at the beginning of the meditation just to allow the body to adjust itself, to find its way into the meditation posture. Make sure that your hands or arms are resting on some physical support so that you can release the weight of both arms onto that support. And don't feel that you need to tense up your shoulder muscles or arm muscles throughout the meditation, just to hold your arms up in some special way. Feel free to close your eyes completely if you find that helpful, or if you are familiar with or more used to keeping your eyes open or half open, then that is also fine. So first we sense the sensations coming through from beneath our body, from the points of contact between body and seat, body and ground. Just to give our body a good sense that it is well rooted in this posture, well supported, that it is resting on something that feels very solid, firm, and stable. And given time, the body will get the message. It will realize that maybe it does not need to be so tight and tense. It doesn't have to maintain all those contractions of the muscles in different parts of the body. It can loosen up a bit, it can unwind, you can let go of some of those unnecessary tensions and tightenings, and allow yourself to settle down and be comfortable in the meditation posture. So next, we're going to take quite a bit of time to help body and mind to shift gears, to put aside, to release anything unhelpful, any kind of reactions or reactivity that preoccupied them. So the body and mind can come back here and now and really settle into the meditation. And we're going to do a practice that I call touch and release, which is I usually synchronize it with the rhythm of the breath. So if that's okay for you, see if you can get in touch with the sensations of your own breathing. Allow yourself to notice and be aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. Now that we are in touch with the rhythm of the breath, and don't feel you have to focus very hard on the breath sensations, just allow that natural rhythm of the breath to guide you, to give you a kind of support. So much so that on the in-breath, feel that we are inviting our attention to come back here and now, to be in touch, to sense what is going on in our body, in our environment, in our own mind. And on the out-breath, as we breathe out, this is an excellent opportunity to just release. We don't have to do anything, we don't have to make anything happen. At best, we just need to remind ourselves as we breathe out with the word release. There may be some of those things that are unhelpful or unneeded may just flow away with the out breath. So following the rhythm of your own breath, breathing in, let's start at the crown, and just with a light touch, be aware of sensations at the crown. And on the out breath, release. Simply say the word in your own mind, giving permission for anything unneeded or unhelpful to be released along with the out breath. Breathing in, coming back to the breath, coming back to here and now. Be in touch with the subtle sensations at the crown. Nothing special or spectacular, just a little bit of tingling here and there, slight pressure, maybe nothing much at all. And on the out breath, just remind ourselves, our own system, body and mind, that they can release. Moving on from there, releasing our attention from the crown, allow it to align at the face, maybe align at the spot somewhere at the forehead, between the eyebrows, just very gently touching here. Be aware of sensations at our face, at the forehead. Are we tensing up the muscles of the forehead? And at the rest of the face. And on the out breath, once again, release. And maybe you notice that you have unconsciously tightened some of the muscles in the face. And as you breathe out, as you say the word release, this is an excellent opportunity to persuade those muscles to relax, to let go, and to allow in a different feeling, a feeling of softness, of ease and comfort into your own face. Moving downwards to the throat, to the neck. Pick a spot here at the throat. Invite your attention to come back here on the in-breath, to be in touch, to sense what is happening here and now. On the out-breath, remind yourself to release. Moving further down to the right shoulder, pick a spot at the right shoulder. Breathe in, be in touch, breathe out and release. And here, you'll most likely be aware of tension and unpleasant sensations at the shoulders, at the right shoulder. Shoulders are one of the areas where we tend to store up quite a bit of tightness and tensions. See if we can just acknowledge those sensations here. And on the out breath, we can persuade our body, our system to release. Moving down to the right elbow, touch and release, synchronize with the breath. Whenever you feel ready, move on to the right wrist. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations here. Very subtle sensation at the right wrist. Out and release. Coming back to this present moment, be in touch with sensation in the right hand. Maybe, like me, you notice, apart from the hands, I can hear the sounds of rain in the surrounding. So we invite all these other sensory inputs into our meditation. Be aware of them. And on the out breath, remind ourselves to release. See if you can, as you breathe out, release and surrender the weight of your right arm and hand. Allow it to rest comfortably on its physical support. Switching to the left side, breathing in, be aware of, be in touch with sensations at the left shoulder, and breathing out to release. Moving on to the left elbow, breathe in, be in touch, out and release. Moving on to the left wrist, touch and release at our own pace. And our left hand, Breathe in, be in touch, sensing what is happening here, and breathing out to release. Release the weight of the left hand and arm. Allow that weight to rest comfortably on its physical support. Coming back to the chest, coming back to the heart center, the center of the chest. You may find that throughout the meditation and in real life, in the face of reactivity, we have to keep doing that, inviting our attention to just come back to the present moment, to be in touch. Breathing out, once again, use the magic word, release. Moving down to the abdomen, pick a spot below the navel, rest our attention here, be in touch with sensations. Sensations at the abdomen. Breathing out, deepen the sense of release. Moving down, pick the spot at the base of our spine, at the tip of our tailbone. Breathe in, sensing the sensations here. Breathing out, release. Imagine releasing the weight of the pelvis, allowing it to rest comfortably on the seat. Moving down to the right leg, starting at the right hip joint. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations at the right hip. Breathe out to release. Moving down to the right knee, touch and release at your own pace. Down to the right ankle, touch and release. Into the right foot, touch and release. Be in touch with the sensations from the sole of the right foot, the top of it, sensation in the toes, and release the weight of our entire right leg. Allow it to rest comfortably on the floor or on whatever physical support it is on. Switching over to the left side, starting from the left hip joint, touch and release. Down to the left knee, touch and release. Down to the left ankle, touch and release. Down into the left foot, touch and release. Be in touch with sensations in the left foot, and on the out breath, as we release the weight of the left leg, allow it also to rest comfortably on the floor, wherever support it is on. We rest our body into the posture, allow it to continue to unwind, to loosen up, to release unnecessary physical tensions, part of the body's reactions to what is happening in our life. In touch with the state of our own mind, different thoughts, feelings that are triggered. Breathing out, we try to release, try to calm the mind down, try to let go of unnecessary reactivities. Now that we have traveled from crown to feet, we rest our body in the meditation posture. Breathing in again and again, we invite our attention to come back to the present moment, come back to sensing through our physical senses, be it through the body, through listening. And breathing out, we try to deepen the sense of release, releasing any of the reactivities, manifest in the form of thinking of a past or future, drawing our attention away from this moment. Okay, so there's meditation on touch and release, inviting our attention again and again to come back, to be in touch, to sense what is happening here and now, especially through our physical senses, and also to facilitate a process of release, releasing our system, our body and mind from all habituated reactivities. Reactivities quite often in the form of thinking, feeling, and also physical contractions and tightenings that are bound up with could be attachment or aversion, the usual way we react to situations. Yeah. I find that when something has already been triggered, some reactivity has been triggered, of course, we wouldn't feel. It would be very hard to be completely calm and centered because these reactions, which has different components, have already started. But applying at least some form of practice similar to this does help to keep things in perspective for myself. Repeatedly inviting my attention, even if it's just a very brief moment, to come back to here and now, to sense what is happening in my environment, in my own body, put things in perspective. I can see very clearly that I mean, I can't help it, but my thoughts are all preoccupied with, could be something of the past, could be something of the future, and I can see by the contrast between the shifting the attention back to the present moment, and then the attention being hijacked and dragged back into the scenario, for example, the future. That contrast makes it easier for me to perceive that I'm reacting, and actually not even reacting in the best possible way, and may not be the most effective way of dealing with the situation, actually. So that helps to keep things, prevent my reactions from escalating further. And the other aspect of it, of course, is how can we find our way into a state of equanimity. Now, equanimity, a lot of time people have mistaken it to be indifference. The way to be equanimous is to not show any concern, not get involved, not show concern for things that's happening. But actually, that's not what equanimity is about. Equanimity only superficially looks like indifference. Because when we are equanimous, we don't tend to overreact. We don't have this sort of exaggerated kind of emotional outbursts, or we don't have this kind of busyness of thoughts. Instead, we are just dealing with the facts, the reality of that moment. So it can come across as very matter of fact, which is really the thing that we want. We just deal with whatever it is that happened, and then we get on with our life. We don't have to waste so much time and energy on things that are not needed, on imaginary things that our minds sort of cooked up, as part of our reactions. Yeah. So the classic meditation on equanimity that I personally find works for me, which I'm going to share here, and I just explain a little bit, and then we just do it and see what happens. Relate back to the teaching, the Buddha's teaching of action and their consequences, or what we call karma. But we don't have to use this Sanskrit word karma. We just call it actions. Actions include our choices, include what I choose to do or not do, what I choose to proceed, what I choose to refrain from doing. Include actions of the thoughts, what I dwell, what my attention dwell on, thinking about, planning. Include actions of speech, how I choose to communicate, or what I choose to say or not say, and also actions of body, physical behavior, physical actions. Yeah. And because in relation to change, something changed in my circumstances, in my life situation. So what is needed is a kind of response, and so it's just exactly the circumstances that calls for actions. And sometimes, of course, what is needed is wait. Yeah. So not necessarily we always have to do something. Sometimes not doing might be the appropriate thing. And equanimity has to do with understanding in such a situation, the power of our actions, and that our actions have consequences, and therefore to be mindful of the choices and the kind of actions we engage in. So the way to meditate on equanimity, I repeat, the way I do it is I repeat a simple phrase, a set of phrases. It goes something like that: we are the owners of our actions. In a general statement, we are the owners of our actions. Our happiness and unhappiness depends on our actions, not merely on our wishes for ourselves. So this is related to self. Sometimes when like in this meditation, I'm doing it in relation to myself. I would say, I am the owners of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not merely on my wishes for myself. So think of it as finding a positive response to the changes that's happening in my life. Thinking that way, then we can look at the meaning of what we are trying to say. I am the owners of my actions. So I am ultimately responsible for all the choices and all the behavior that originate from me. Of course, we can make excuses for ourselves. We can say that, oh, I didn't really want to do it, but it's just due to habits or whatever. Regardless of what explanation we come up with, what sort of excuses we might make up for ourselves, we are the originator of those actions, those behaviors. It's a bit like, I like to think of it with the analogy of, if I drop a pebble into a body of water, into a pool of water, where the pebbles strike the water, ripples ripple out from that. That is the center. If we were to able to somehow trace the ripple back to their source, it will come back to that point, the point where I dropped the pebble. So that is the originator of the action. Whether I did it intentionally, unintentionally, carefully, carelessly, and so on and so forth, whatever explanation or reason I might have, that is the originator. And so if the waves were to rebound or something were to happen, it will come back to that same point. It will come back to me. Right? And that's all there is. And it makes things very clear that if I originate something as a result of that will come back to me. And that is, in a nutshell, karma. Our actions have consequences. The consequences come back to us, whether we like it or not. And it doesn't always have to be the one we imagine it to be, because our actions interact with other causes and conditions, other people's actions, other people's reactions. But you come back to me because I'm the originator of that actions. So I'm the owners of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions. So if I want to be happy, then I need to be skillful and make the choices or the actions that will bring about happiness as a result, as an outcome. Or if I'm unskillful, if I'm foolish or stupid or whatever, I might act in such a way that instead of bringing happiness, my actions lead to unhappiness, lead to suffering. So I need to choose wisely and be careful about looking into not just myself, but all is my actions interaction with the environment, with causes and conditions and so forth. Of course, we can never 100% determine or predict the precise outcome, but we try our best. And if we are in tune with the situation, if we are very much present with reality, then we are in a better position to make better choices. Whereas if we are all caught up in our reactions, be it towards the past or the imagined future, and if that kind of thinking involves a distortion, our perceptions are distorted, our perspective is distorted, then most likely the actions, the choices that come out of that reactive state is not going to contribute to my happiness. It's going to make things worse for me. It's going to contribute to my unhappiness. Hence the phrase, my happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions. So the more I'm in tune with this, the more I am able to, I'm convinced about it, the more care, more attention and mindfulness I will bring to those situations. Because look, how I act, how I behave, or how I fail to act or fail to behave will have real consequences to myself. Yeah. And the last phrase would be not merely on my wishes for myself. So quite often we think that just because I really want something, somehow the universe should give it to me. Or if I really don't want something, somehow the universe should take it away. But unfortunately, I don't think the universe is a wish-granting machine. So what we get or don't get depends on the combination of causes and conditions, of which part of it is come from ourselves, part of it is our choices, our actions. Of course, there are also other factors, and the interactions of this complex causes and conditions bring forth different outcomes. So although we may have a certain wish or certain desire, but the wish and the desire alone is not enough. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often said these days, he's been saying it for many years, the prayers alone are not enough. It's important to pray, to express certain aspirations, to orientate our attention and mind towards whatever goals we may have. That is important in itself, but that alone is not enough. We still need to assemble the different causes and conditions. We need to interact and work with the existing causes and conditions, which are a complicated issue, in order to bring about our desired outcomes. So it's a very empowering statement, and equanimity is born out of that, out of the clear seeing. That what is needed in each situation is not so much our ability, I should put it differently, is how in touch we are with the reality of the moment, how in touch we are with all the causes and conditions, or the different factors that might be present in that situation. The more in touch we are, the more accurate we are in assessing the situation and to be in touch with reality, the better it is we are able to adjust and adapt and then respond to that situation. Whereas the more out of touch we are with reality, which I'm all wrapped up and all caught up in my own suffering, all caught up in my own past conditioning and my imagined future, especially if they are completely unrelated to reality, then the more it is that my actions, my choices will be distorted and ineffective in bringing about the results that I desire. So equanimity born out of a clear seeing into the reality of the moment, the conditional nature of our existence and of our experiences. All our experiences arise based on conditions, and by the more we are in touch with those conditions, sensitive to those conditions, the more we are good at working with them and changing them in certain ways, then the higher the chances are for us to gain or to get the desired outcome. The more out of touch we are with the whole situation, the more likely it is that we will make a mess of it. The goodness of our goodness is the face off. I don't understand what that means. But anyway, so equanimity means part of it comes from the conviction of this conditional nature of our life, of our situations. And so the more it's inviting us to come back again and again to this moment, to our present moment reality, to be in touch with, as much as possible, different factors and conditions, outer and inner, and to remind ourselves that our actions matter. Our actions of thoughts, of speech, of behavior. And we need to, also that it's not just up to us. It's the interaction between ourselves and other people, ourselves and the environment, ourselves with all the complex causes and conditions that determine what sort of outcomes will come out of it. So the more we invite ourselves to be back here, to be in touch, to sense, and to find creatively the best possible response, then the higher the chances are we will get our desired outcome. Right? So in this meditation, I just basically repeat this phrase: I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. And what I do is, as I repeat the phrase a few times, I'm using the words of the phrasing to stimulate, to stir up different kinds of thoughts, different kinds of conditionings, different kind of reactions, and see what they are. I'm like, think of it as a stick that I stick into the pool of water, which is my mind, and stir it and see what's come forth, whether I agree with it, whether I don't agree with it. Maybe this touch a raw nerve and something flare up, and I want to take a good look at it. Do I object to certain ideas? Do I agree with it? If I object, why do I object? If I agree, what would be in the future? Then what would I choose to do? I am the owners of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not merely on my wishes for myself. For example, I would say this, and then I would remember maybe, since I'm a pessimist, my mind tends to go in the negative direction. And sometimes I can get into this complaining mode. I will be complaining about this and that, about other people, about myself, complaining about my parents, about my upbringing, my early life experiences. So in the view of that kind of reactions, by asking myself, by saying this phrase, my happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not merely on my wishes for myself. For me, it's a reminder to say, look, if I don't like my circumstances, what am I doing to improve it, to change it? And if I, and also to remind myself, regardless of what has happened in the past, regardless of who my parents are, and what my early life experiences are, well, not now in this moment, what are my choices? What are my actions? What am I doing about it? So it's a very forward-looking kind of thing. It's not a backward-looking kind of looking for an explanation, but it's a forward-looking kind of orientation as to, from this point on, what then are my choices? What are the choices available? What are the actions I can take that would transform my future experience? So I suggest that we do a meditation, and you see what comes up. Nothing comes up, that's fine. You can abide in the state of stillness, since nothing is stirred up by it. But if something comes up, take a good look at it, and feel free to reflect and think a bit and contemplate in the light of the verse. You don't have to believe everything said by the verse, but it's just a support to help us find our own understanding and find our way to equanimity. All right, so let's do a meditation now and see whether we're able to find that equanimous state of mind in the face of change. So I invite you to settle back into a suitable meditation posture. Take care that whichever posture you adopt, you allow your back, your spine to be in a comfortable position, a natural, comfortable position, upright if you're sitting, and straight if you're lying down. Rest your hands and arms on some physical support so that you don't have to tense up your shoulder muscles. And feel free to close your eyes completely if that's helpful, or leave them open if you are used to that. So as always, I start with taking a few moments just to help the body to adjust, to adapt to the meditation posture, to get used to it. Be aware of the sensations coming through from beneath the body, highlight sensations of solidity, of firmness and stability, sensations we associate with the earth element. We allow the body to feel that in this posture it is well supported by the great earth, grounded and supported, so that it is well balanced in the posture and that it is safe. Being reassured in this way, this will help the body to begin the process of loosening up, unwinding, setting aside unnecessary tensions and contractions. And as those tensions and contractions are released, the body will be able to settle back and settle down, feeling more and more comfortable in the meditation posture. And the second step, we're going to take a few minutes just to help body and mind to make the transition, to come fully back here and now into the meditative state. And for that, we're going to make use of the breath as a support to help us. So become aware of the sensations of the breath in this moment. Notice the great variety of breath sensations in the different parts of the body. And see if we can allow ourselves to just notice and experience the natural in-breath and the out-breath. Coming back to the breath sensations again and again, inviting attention to come back here and now. And especially when we sense an out breath, breathing out, see if we can make use of this opportunity to deepen the sense of release. Breathing out just as we release the carbon dioxide in our lungs, we can imagine and we can allow that we are also releasing anything unhelpful, unnecessary tightness, tensions in the body. If they are not needed, maybe they can just flow away with the out breath and disappear. Sometimes the mind is busy with thoughts, with images, with inner storytelling, inner commentary. Breathing out, maybe we can also release those thoughts and allow them to flow away with the breath. Coming back to the breath, coming back to here and now, and on the out breath, deepening the sense of release. See if we can release any tension in the face. So often we unconsciously tighten the facial muscles as part of our reactions. So now might be a good time if we do notice any tightness, tension, and discomfort in the face, tightening of the muscles in different parts of the face. See if we can, as we breathe out, release. Allow the whole face to soften, to feel so much more at ease and comfortable and relaxed. And we can use the breath as a support for the rest of the meditation. At any point of time during the meditation, we find ourselves very distracted or confused, or unsure, we can always come back to the breath and reorientate ourselves. And now to explore the heartfelt quality of equanimity, to try on ourselves, to see how does it feel, to see what is being triggered and what comes forth. I suggest you repeat a simple set of phrases, such as mine. Feel free to change your wordings if you like, and play around with the words, with the ideas and the meanings behind them. I say to myself, I'm the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. So each of these repetition is like dropping a pebble into the pool of our own mind, disturbing the mind's stillness, and see what comes forth. And in relation to that, to contemplate, to reflect, or to come back to the phrases and start again. I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. As you say the words, allow the words to function, to bring forth different images, ideas, to trigger different kind of reactions, and for ourselves to examine them one at a time, to ponder a bit deeper on the meaning and intention behind the words we just said, and to see if we can find out for ourselves what does equanimity really mean to each one of us. I'm the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. Coming back to the words, allow the words to trigger, to bring forth images, memories, reactions, for us to contemplate, to ponder a bit deeper, to uncover the associations underlying them. As we repeat the words, I'm the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. I might reflect on some of the reactions, the common habitual patterns of reactivity, which involve a very particular way of thinking about the situation, feeling about it, and then acting or reacting out of it. I can take a look and see how effective these reactions are in securing my happiness and avoiding suffering. Maybe I might discover that my habituated reactions are not very effective. They are more likely to increase my suffering and destroy my chances of happiness or peace of mind. I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. So coming back to here and now in our meditation, and as we repeat the phrase, see if we can allow ourselves to meditate, to reflect, guided by the wordings in the light of the wisdom, understanding karma, understanding conditionality. I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. Reflecting on our reactions, quite often we are reacting to changes as a way to resist the change, resisting the loss of things that we want to hold on to, resisting the coming into our experience of things that we don't want. And as we repeat the phrase, see if we can consider maybe all these habituated reactions are not effective in avoiding suffering or bringing us happiness. Maybe they used to be helpful, but now they're just disturbing the peace of our mind. They're confusing the situations, aggravating the situations. Maybe it is time to release them, to put them aside, and to take responsibility of our choices and actions. I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. So coming back to this moment, slowly, mindfully repeat our own phrases of equanimity. I am the owner of my actions. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions and not merely on my wishes for myself. Allow the words to stir us up our own thoughts And feel free to pursue the different train of thoughts that come to mind. There is no one fixed way to meditate. And we can meditate on it in accordance to our circumstances, in accordance to what come to mind. And just for us to contemplate and ponder, how do we actualize the state of equanimity in our own experience? So equanimity is a balanced state of mind. I used to think of it as a buffer. So a buffer is, at least in a chemical sense, since I'm trained as a chemist, a buffer is a solution that has the intrinsic property of able to maintain, for example, the pH within a certain range. It's not perfect, but so long as there's little changes here and there, it's able to buffer you add different substances to it, it's able to somehow keep the pH within limits, with a certain limit, prevent it from swinging too far out in either direction within its capacity. So equanimity is the mind, body capacity to, in the face of change, to sustain a state of balance, preventing our system from swinging wildly this way or that way, and doing damage to ourselves in the process. And by sort of like a balancing act, learning how to balance, in the face of change, we are not rigid, we are not fixated. Of course, we don't have to demand ourselves to be always changing for no good reason. But in the face of new situations, new circumstances, we learn to, we respond to it in a creative way. So to do that, we need to be in touch with the actual situations. Of course, we can draw on our past learning, our past experiences, but we don't want to just react to new changes constantly in a fixated way, just based on our old reactivity. The old reactivity might be helpful in the past, not rejecting that, but it might be ineffective facing new changes, especially if we only have that one or two ways of reacting. It's almost like there's in our toolbox, it's just that one way or two way, either attachment or aversion. Nothing else. And they are ineffective. They don't allow us to address the new changes, and instead they hold us back. They kept us in some kind of some merry-go-round. We just keep repeating the same old thing. It's very repetitive. And so not only does it not help us to address the new changes, but we are stuck in old reactions, which is very unfortunate, isn't it? Unexpected. Well, changes are often unexpected. I mean, if you expect it, then it's much easier to deal with. It's always the sudden things that change, that sort of fall out of our expectations that we find difficult, that we are most likely to react in the most habituated, familiar way. And so practice of equanimity is really to have that buffer, so that whatever we encounter, new changes, unexpected changes, we do not immediately fall back on old reactions, old reactivity, but instead to be able to be present with it, to be in touch with it, and to find the most creative, as I say, creative response to it. Yeah, and it's very empowering. Actually, part of equanimity is not about being passive, about being resisting change, or withdrawal, staying away from change. Which anyway we can't avoid it. It's not avoidance behavior. It's not withdrawal behavior. Instead, it is a state of balance, sensitivity, to be aware of what is happening here and now, and to come up with the best solution that we can. Of course, never perfect. So this is, I think, time's up for the morning sessions. The afternoon session, we're going to explore some more of equanimity, and to link it up to the most important thing, the Buddhist teaching, the wisdom of understanding conditionality, the wisdom of emptiness, which is really, it's not about nothing, but about things being empty of some kind of fixation, free from those fixations, allow us to stay in touch with change. Okay, so that is just a little bit about what we're going to cover in the afternoon at 1 o'clock. Since those of you who found your way here will probably be able to find, we have, just to repeat myself, start scheduling the sessions again. Previously, I announced that we're trying to try out something new, trying to use a single link for all my online presentations, but that doesn't work at all. So we are back to scheduling. So just have a look at via our YouTube channel for the afternoon session if you are joining us. And I'll see you in an hour's time. Enjoy your lunch, or if you're not back, enjoy the rest of Sunday. See you later.